Episode 205, Ironman Cozumel with Jana Richtrova. Welcome to the pursuit of the perfect race. I'm Coach Terry Wilson, and with each episode, I bring stories of athletes to you that share their experiences at races in order for you to learn how to have your perfect race. We will hear stories from athletes of all ages, abilities, and races of all distances. So regardless of where you fit in, there's something in there for you. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now let the pursuit begin. Hey everybody, welcome back to the pursuit of the perfect race. Today I have the pleasure of talking with Jana Richtrova about her recent race at Ironman Cozumel that took place on November 18th, 2018, where the temperature was 71 and rose to 84 with the water temperature being 81 degrees. She went down there very well prepared and had a great time of 9 hours, 56 minutes, and 39 seconds. She's been doing triathlons for many years, and the byproduct of this race gave her a slot for Kona for 2019. She's ready to share her experience about her race that day. Welcome back to the show, Jana. I look forward to diving into your race.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So how have you been since Texas? I know you went to Kona and you moved down to Texas and all this fun stuff.
Yeah, there's been a lot happening since we last talked at Ironman Texas. Unfortunately, not all that much on the racing front. So I had some issues with my Achilles leading into Texas and in Texas. So I took a time to heal it, which meant, not a lot of time to race as I wasn't running very much, but, really just focused on Kona, which was the big goal for the year, and was able to get healthy. And then somewhere in between, I moved down to Texas in the middle of August. And so, did my last prep here in the heat and humidity that definitely rivals the one of Hawaii. And, went down there. Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned. And then I ended up, as a result, kind of signing up last minute for Ironman Cozumel.
Wow. So how has your training been going with the injury recovery and then your lead up going into Kona?
Yeah, my lead up into Kona was actually really good. Once I got rid of the kind of Achilles issues, I was able to get back to running, and really my swimming and cycling has been really going really well. And I felt probably one of the fittest I've ever been going into Hawaii. So I was super excited to, try to capitalize upon that fitness and having the ability to train in the heat and crazy humidity, which is actually way worse here in Texas than it is in Hawaii. I was really excited to see, what kind of a difference that is going to make. Unfortunately, race day, Kona conditions were super mild, and so the heat that we were expecting and the wind on the bike that really helps me as a strong cyclist was non-existent. So the gap I normally would close from the swim and potentially gain on the runners just was non-existent. And although I rode well, I lost some of my fueling on the bike very early. So I had to troubleshoot, and my choice of drinking lots of Coke ended up backfiring on me on the run. So I didn't really get to run to my potential, and hence I was disappointed with my race, and, kind of recovered fairly quickly. Because I ran so poorly. And so that's how I decided to, try to see and show myself the fitness that I really had going into Kona, and try to use it in Cozumel just one more time.
Right. I mean, so being that you basically did one big lead up for Kona, then you kind of probably tapered down a little bit, did a recovery from Kona going into Cozumel. What kind of key workouts were you getting in between the two races?
Honestly, I didn't really do all that much. I probably took a couple weeks kind of off in terms of super structured workouts. So I would swim, bike, and run, but nothing crazy, kind of just based on really how I felt. And then the 3 weeks out, there's 5 weeks in between. The 3 weeks out, I did kind of a first longer ride. I just went out with a group here because thankfully I wasn't going back to Boston where it was already cold, but back to Texas where it was still nice and warm. So I was able to, go out and ride outside. And I think I did a 2-hour ride that weekend, and, felt really good and kind of recovered and tried to run, and legs felt good as well. So then 2 weeks out, I did my really one and only kind of key training, if you will. I think I did a 5-hour ride, but actually on the trainer because it was a little chilly in the morning, even in Texas, and Cozumel is also very hot and humid. So I wanted to just be in a controlled environment and get used to kind of the heat and humidity again. So I did a 5-hour Zwift ride and with I think 45-minute runoff on the treadmill. And then, yeah, that was really the big session, the only big session that I did before Cozumel. I think a week out, I also did another 3-hour ride also on Zwift, as Texas was not being kind and brought like some freaky winter weather early, but it was like in the 40s or 50s, which is too cold for Cozumel. So again, 3 hours on Zwift. And then I think I did a 10-mile run the next day on the treadmill, but that was it. Everything in between was just, kind of listening to my body and trying to add in some intensity where I felt like I could to kind of wake up the legs. And yeah, just like I said, really listening to how I felt, which is key when you're doing 2 long distance races back to back.
Right. So when you're on Zwift, what kind of workouts are you doing on there? Is it structured workouts or are you just riding on the road?
Yeah. So if I'm doing a long ride, then, I obviously have a idea of what I'm going to do. So this was more for like Ironman effort. So because I use a smart trainer, I use the Cyclops hammer. It really feels like I'm riding outside. So I just pick a route and then I ride. So I actually did started out on Zwift, and then a couple hours in, there was like a race that was going on. So I just entered the race so that it looks like I'm riding with other people and it keeps me motivated and, sometimes tried to push. But I was really just trying to practice my pacing, Ironman pacing, as well as nutrition and fueling, because I've been having some issues lately. So I wanted to try something different, and really I just had one shot to try. So just really make sure I was getting everything in that I wanted to, and hopefully then it was going to work out on race day.
Right. So I know for Texas you use potatoes because it's not too sweet, and you don't really like the sweet stuff too much because you're weird. So
no, see, I like the sweet stuff. I just don't like it for 10 hours.
Oh, okay,
okay. I need a little variety. So yeah, I did the same stuff for Kona as I did for Texas. Well, in Kona, I overconcentrated a bottle with Leveland sports string, and I usually bring packets that I put in my pockets, and then I mix them in the front aero bottle. But I was, the day before the race in Hawaii, I decided to try something new, and I think it was 2 hours worth of nutrition into one bottle, and the bottle, one of the rear bottle cages actually ended up breaking. So the bottom lip of the cage was soft. So it was still there, but it was already broken. And that's how I lost the bottle, which had 2 hours worth of stuff in it. And I didn't bring any extra. So, I don't do Gatorade very well. So I knew I couldn't do that. And that's how I ended up with Coke as extra nutrition, which was awesome in Hawaii on the bike, because Coke is jet fuel, but I don't drink caffeine, and I don't normally. So I don't drink coffee, because I don't like it. So there's no like reason why besides the fact that I don't like it. So by the time I got to the run, I had too much caffeine in my system, and my heart rate was like, at a threshold level when I was running easy, and it just kept climbing when I was slowing down. And yeah, it felt like I was going to have a heart attack. My heart was trying to crawl out of my chest. So I definitely just had too much caffeine and had to slow down. So I obviously wanted to avoid that. So I went back to making my packets of my Leveland drink for Cozumel, and then just, refilling them in the firm bottle. But for some reason, the combination of the Leveland and the potatoes, and I also do Cliff Gels or Cliff Blocks, seems to be really good for about 3.5 hours. And then after that, I don't want anything to do with any of that. So I've had that issue kind of in training on and off since Texas. I don't know if it's the heat or what, but it's been working for years. But for some reason, maybe my body's changing. I must be getting older or something. It's just, after like 3.5 hours, I'm done with it. And, when that happens, just body kind of shuts down, and I need to take a break for a good hour, and that's when I fall behind, and it's hard to catch up after that. So,
Wow.
yeah, so there you go. There's the fueling challenge that we all have to deal with. That's ever so important.
What about the day-to-day nutrition? How do you monitor that? I mean, you're pretty much the same way you were 8 months ago when you did Texas.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've never had issues. People are going to hate me for this, but I've never had any really issues with weight. I think, a lot of it is genetic, and I'm naturally just thin and small. And so I eat like a crazy person. So if you ask any of my friends, I'm usually like the garbage can around the table that finishes everybody's food when they don't want it. So yeah, it's pretty easy for me to stay at the same weight. It's, with Ironman training, and especially the sweating that happens here in Texas, it's actually it's probably harder to keep the weight on than to get it off. So
And
that's never been, and I found, that kept me full for a little while. Yeah. I do a lot better with carbs than a lot of protein or meat. Oh yeah, that was good.
Wow. So going into Kona and then coming off of Kona, going into Cozumel, what was the most hours you trained in 1 week?
Oh boy. I think before Kona, my max was probably 20, 22 hours maybe. But that's probably 1 or 2 weeks, and that's it. So, I don't do a lot of volume. I focus a lot on quality. So a lot of, hard efforts, intervals, whether it's swim, bike, or run. So there's not a lot of junk miles and kind of super easy, just putzing around efforts. Every session has its focus. And so the hours that I train on average is probably, maybe between 13 to 15 hours a week. 15 is on the high end. It's probably around the 13. And as I peak, then, once I start riding super long, then, the 20 hours is the max, but I don't do that often. And then between Kona and Cozumel, like I said, I don't even know. I think I only did that 1 5-hour ride. So I probably peaked around 12 hours, maybe, if that.
It seemed like it was more about mentally decompressing and recharging the mental.
Yeah, honestly, it's just, when it's 5 weeks in between, you're just trying to recover, make sure you recover fully, and then maintain the fitness that you have. There really isn't much time to try to gain any fitness. You're just trying not to lose any and feel good. And that's on the physical side of things. Mentally, I knew I wanted to race again. So this wasn't a race that was on the schedule to begin with. I knew as soon as I was like 2 days after Kona, I just knew kind of from the inside out that I needed to go try again. I really felt like I wasn't sore. I was like, okay, I need to get out there again. And so I sat on it for a little while just to make sure I really, was recovered. So after a couple of weeks when I did that couple-hour ride, and I felt good and my legs felt strong, I was like, okay, this was going to be my 13th Ironman. So I kind of I noticed a big difference in how I felt after like the first one or the second one to how I feel now. So I really knew I felt good, and I just couldn't go into off season knowing that I left so much fitness on the table. And essentially since Texas to Kona, that's 6 months of work went to waste. So I just wanted to get out there again, no matter what, no matter the result. I didn't, the goal wasn't to go back and like get a Kona slot. I just wanted to truly go and race to my potential, or at least, feel good about the way I raced and be happy, and then go into off season. Otherwise I would have I just knew on the inside I had to go do it. So
an emotional redemption is what
there you go. That sounds awesome. Yes. Emotional redemption. That sounds good.
So to backtrack a little bit, you had some Achilles issues after Texas. How did you and Jorge, your coach, mitigate this of going into Kona? Because you got your slot for Kona this year at Texas, and you want to make sure that was really well recovered and not an issue at Kona. How did y'all?
Yeah. So essentially it was just a lot of, I did stop running, And I just started to focus on a lot of kind of stretching and strengthening, functional strength, because the Achilles pain was coming from essentially super tight calves. So neglecting all the foam rolling and the things that we don't like to do. I knew I've really never been injured. So this was really the first time that I was forced to like skip races that I originally wanted to do. And although I could have pushed and done them, I knew that, I was focusing on the big one. And so I kind of put all my eggs into one basket. And yeah, between kind of not running for probably a good month and just, doing all the little things like I said, stretching, strengthening, and then seeing, a couple of professionals in terms of like ART and Graston and all that fun stuff, just having them help me to loosen up all the tight, muscles that were pulling on the Achilles. That fixed it. And then obviously getting back to running slowly. So not rushing into like, oh my God, I'm behind. Oh, my fitness is horrible. I can't run. Instead I just was focusing on swimming and keeping up my engine going that way. Cycling was fine as well. So although, running, if you will, was suffering, my fitness was still high. So when I got back at it and was able to slowly build back up, I was fine by race day. Obviously I did stay away from doing a lot of things that I normally would do, like hill repeats that put extra strain on the Achilles, or a lot of speed work, which you don't necessarily need for Ironman. You just need to not slow down. So, the run prep still wasn't perfect, but I was able to then eventually get in the miles and feel good about where my run fitness was.
Okay. So I know we've already talked about your life-work balance in the previous episode of Texas, so I'm not going to sit here and talk about that again. I'm sure that's pretty much all the same. So we'll just go ahead and dive into, when did you actually start traveling to Texas? Or not Texas, oh my gosh. When did you actually start traveling from Texas down to Cozumel?
So I actually, because I signed up so late, but I was also lucky that Jorge, my coach's parents, live in Cancun area. So I flew down on Tuesday of race week and stayed with them for a couple of days before then taking the ferry to Cozumel on Thursday. So race was on Sunday. So I flew into Cancun, stayed a couple of days, and then took the ferry from Playa de Carmen to Cozumel.
Well, I'm not the only one messing this up.
Yeah.
So whenever you first got there, I know this isn't your first time doing Cozumel, so you kind of had an idea what to expect here. What was your first impression of the island this time?
Yeah, so I've done this race twice before, back in 2014 and 15, so I knew what to expect. And I actually originally wanted to go race Ironman Argentina just because I wanted something different. But when I looked at just how far Argentina really was and the cost of flights was absolutely insane, I just, chose Cozumel, and I loved the course. I loved the little town. People really, all the locals come out and support the race, and it's a cute little island that kind of really lives and breathes the Ironman that weekend. So it didn't really change much to me in terms of what it looked like back in 2015 to what it looked like now. Hot, humid, windy, kind of exactly what I was looking for in Hawaii and didn't get.
So I remember whenever we did the Texas episode, you had this one word of fearless throughout the persona of going into Texas. And that was kind of the mantra throughout the whole year. How has that resonated with Kona and now then going into Cozumel?
Yeah, obviously that doesn't change. That's kind of what I live by, if you will. I think the only thing that was different going into Cozumel, that had nothing to do with being fearless and not. It just had to do with kind of how I approach the race. So instead of putting all this pressure on myself, and really self-imposed of, wanting to perform really well, but at the same time end up on essentially the top of the podium, which is what I've been chasing in Kona for a while. I just went into Cozumel like I said, I wanted to be happy with what I did. And if that meant I won, great. But for some reason that wasn't even on my mind. And that's probably, it's been a while since I didn't think about going into a race and winning, but I think it took a lot of the pressure off. And I just felt like a sense of calm that, whatever happens, happens. If I win, great. If I don't, whatever, I'll try again, because I knew I was going to have another chance probably at some point in 2019. So, yeah.
Seems like you had to dial back your type A personality of being so competitive.
Yeah, I mean, the competitiveness was still there, but it was more so with my own self rather than with anybody else, and kind of, checking out who's coming or not coming. And just, I knew that if I did what I trained for, then the rest was going to take care of itself. And I honestly didn't even care if I was last, as long as I raced, and was happy with the way I raced. Not necessarily like having a perfect race, which is something we talked about before, but just, dealing with the curveballs that get thrown your way a better way than I guess did 5 weeks ago.
Right. So whenever you got to the athlete check-in, how was the check-in process and the bike drop?
So Cozumel is a point-to-point race. So there's a couple transitions, and then it's a point-to-point swim. So it's essentially like almost 3 spots you need to go to. So that can get a little messy. I stayed at a hotel that was actually at the run turnaround, which is completely opposite of where the swims start in like T1 and T2 then is. So I actually, you can take cabs to registration, or there's buses that come with the host hotels that you can take to drop off your stuff before a race. So for registration, I actually rode my bike, because I flew with my bike and then had to put it together myself, because I was going down, because it was such a last minute decision. I just went by myself. So, put my bike together, headed to, it was probably about 5 miles, rode my bike to registration, which was super easy. Picked up my stuff and then rode back. Slight issue on the way back. I actually fell off my bike. Going at about 22 miles an hour. So that wasn't ideal, but I was super lucky, and neither myself or bike got horribly injured or damaged. So that was a little curveball that I wouldn't recommend doing while in Cozumel or before a race.
Did you hit something?
So I was about a mile from the hotel, and I had the backpack that you get at registration on my back, and I was also using it kind of as like, okay, well, let's make sure my bike is fine. And, I haven't ridden my bike since Monday, so now it was Thursday, so I wanted like a little ride instead of just like a cruise. And so I was pushing pretty good, and it was really windy that day, and there was there was a couple cabs coming, and one was passing the other, and it just looked like they were coming way too close to me. And so I decided to like try to get out of the way, and I kind of overleaned to the right, and I leaned too far, and essentially was heading towards a fairly high curb. And because I was in aero, I already knew I couldn't steer the bike the other way. So I just ended up, well, I don't know how I fell, but because I just shut my eyes and like prayed that I don't end up in a Mexican hospital. That's honestly the only things that were going through my head. So I just hit the curb sideways, obviously. And then I don't know, somehow I fell off my bike and I landed on my bum and on my head really. Cause I dented my helmet and I had some road rash on my forearm, but ripped my shorts and ripped my shirt. And
oh my goodness.
I think I got the wind knocked out of me too, but nothing was broken and I felt awesome from waist down. It's just like, I whiplashed my neck. So my neck was sore, and then my back just from the impact was super tight and like, not ideal, but I was super lucky that, it wasn't worse. And my bike barely had any scratches on it. So somehow, I don't know, somebody was looking out for me. So I got back on my bike, which was thankfully fine too. And, got to the hotel, kind of cleaned up or whatever. And then just hope that when I wake up the next day, which was now going to be Friday morning. So a couple of days before the race, I was still going to be able to move. So, so that was a little side note, but registration was smooth.
Yeah.
Other than that, so depending on where you stay, obviously there's a lot of hotels that are around the convention center, which is near the finish line. Also, but because I registered so late, all of those were sold out. So that would make things a lot easier where you can just walk over and
so whenever you got ready to
take care of business.
When you got ready to go check your bike in, how did you get your bike check in over there and then get back to the hotel?
Yeah, so there's about 13 host hotels, which I feel like are all the kind of bigger hotel. Yeah. So they're kind of all over the island, north and south. And most of them are like all-inclusive places, and they all offer actually a free bike mechanic support. So there's usually a mechanic that sits there, I think Thursday, Friday, Saturday for most of the day. So if you need any help kind of in the lobby, they're usually out there. Obviously, they all work for, like, you tip them and stuff, but they don't. They're kind of provided through Ironman, so that was nice. It helps if you speak Spanish because most of them don't speak English. So that's the only drawback, I guess, if you will. And then all those hotels also offer a free shuttle bus service to drop your bike off the day before the race, or like your bags for T1 and T2. So I just took the bus from the hotel to, I think it's Chunkanap Park, which is where the swim finish is and where T1 is. So that's where you drop off your bike and your transition one bag. And then we took essentially the same bus back to the finish line, and that's where which is about, I'm going to say 4 miles maybe, which is where you drop your T2 bag off. And then they don't unfortunately offer the bus to go back to the hotel. So I just took a cab then back. There's no shortage of cabs.
Okay. So as far as your nutrition, being that you were alone down there, what were you doing from a day-to-day nutrition standpoint the day before the race?
So I stayed in an all-inclusive place, which was actually nice. So I just tried to keep the things. I always do a big breakfast the morning before the race, so that was easy with an all-inclusive place. Just the simple eggs, pancakes, bacon. Like they had everything that you'd have like in the United States. All the different carbs plus. So that's really the biggest meal of the day for me. The day before the race. And then I just had, I think I had tacos for lunch.
Tacos.
Because when in Mexico, they do have the best tacos, and they were making them fresh right there. So I knew I was, keeping it fresh and simple. And then for dinner, I always eat spaghetti and chicken and red sauce, which isn't hard to find. And they actually had that as well. So I'm pretty sure this is my third time in Cozumel in a third different hotel, and they all kind of had the same food available the day before the race. So I didn't really have to change much or bring my own or anything like that.
Okay. So I know that it's going to be hot and humid here and very windy. They canceled the practice swim here because of the weather conditions here. Were you wanting to prepare a certain way for these conditions like you do in Texas?
I knew it was going to be hot, windy, and humid. I've done it before, and I think I've learned to strive in it and accept it. So I was actually, because Kona didn't have any wind, which was the weirdest thing ever, I was kind of excited about the wind, although the couple of days leading up to the race, it was really, really windy, and from the very early hours. So I'd wake up at, 6 a.m. and then look out on the ocean, and all you see is white caps everywhere. And
Wow.
Usually you don't see that at 6 a.m. You have to at least wait till afternoon. And it was really rough. So they did end up canceling the practice swim, and I ended up going in the water at the hotel probably for 2 minutes just to make sure I knew kind of what the water temperature was, because there is no race in water warm up on race morning. So I just went in and out, and yeah, it was super rough. And although beautiful, it's probably one of the most beautiful body of waters that you're ever going to see. But
because it's so clear.
It's so clear. Yeah, it's clearer than Hawaii. You can see literally everything, which I'm not sure is a good thing sometimes, but but it was good. And I guess the locals were saying there was some sort of like a wind storm going on or whatever for a couple of days. So the weather was cooler as well. I mean, cooler meaning it didn't feel as hot. It wasn't cold, but for them it felt cold. And yeah, it was really windy. So I was actually I knew that wind plays to my strengths actually once on the bike at least, but I was a little worried that none of us are going to be able to stay on our bikes if that wind kept up. So unfortunately, thankfully the wind did die down on race day. So although it was windy, it wasn't anything like what it was leading up to the race.
Right. Now, I know for Texas you used a disc and some Bontrager wheels, but since then you've changed wheels you've used to Irwin wheels. Why the change?
Yeah, I was actually, so the wheels that I was using before were actually borrowed wheels. And although I love them, I got the opportunity to try out the Irwin wheels, and they're actually super awesome. And having the, ability to actually have choice of wheels. So whether it's a deeper front or back, or shallower front and deeper back, like what I used in Kona that I didn't actually need to use, but actually, having the opportunity to have choices and be on wheels that are mine and that are fast, really was the biggest reason behind it all. So in Cozumel, I did race in Kona as well. In Kona, I raced on like a 58 front and an 85 back, which actually I shouldn't have. I should have raced on the 85 front and 85 back, but I kind of figured it was going to be windy. And so for the first time ever, I was going to use a shallower wheel, and we had zero wind. But for Cozumel, I just went with the bigger wheels, both front and back. And yeah, I think it was a good choice. You're actually not allowed to use a disc wheel in Cozumel because of the crosswinds that can hit you at certain parts of the island. So this was really the deepest combo anybody really could have used.
Okay. So the day before the race, what time are you trying to get in bed?
So I'm not the best at this, but I think I tried to be in bed by like 10. I actually, because of my crash, I was super lucky where a chiropractor from Texas was coming down who's also a triathlete, was coming down to vacation for 5 days in Cozumel. And he arrived on Saturday afternoon, late afternoon. So he actually brought some stuff with him to try to help me kind of loosen up my back before race day. So I spent almost a couple hours with him the night before, which definitely, postponed my bedtime the night before the race. But he definitely helped me to, be a lot looser and actually be able to like lift my head and look up without my neck killing me, and like being able to turn left and right when swimming and stuff. So, because I was definitely in some, a couple days after the crash was probably the worst, where everything just don't realize that although it's not bruised or chafed or whatever, there's no road rash. It's just the impact that it has on your whole body. It's just, I guess my muscles just were super tight, and running, swimming, or biking didn't feel all that great. So he definitely helped to loosen me up. And so then I ended up in bed probably, like I said, by 10, I was probably asleep or at least laying down. So.
Okay. So what time did you get up?
I got up so our race was to go off at 7:30 or around 7:30, which was the start of the amateur rolling start. So I set my alarm for 4 a.m. because I like to make sure I eat my breakfast 3 hours before the race. So I got up at 4 and kind of just got ready, dressed, and ate my bagel and peanut butter, banana, and then went down to lobby to get on the bus. So there was buses that were supposed to leave starting at 5 a.m. to go to T1. So I got down to the lobby probably at 4:50, got on the bus, and we finally left at like 5:20.
Oh, wow.
But it's probably about, because I was at like the furthest point on the north of the island. So at the run turnaround, I was probably a 25-minute drive to T1. So
That didn't give you any anxiety?
well, at first I was like, can we get going already? Because once you get to T1 and you take care of business there, you have to get on another bus that then takes you to the beginning of the swim start. But I kind of figured nobody else had left the hotel and there was plenty of us. So I didn't really need to do that much on race morning. I just had to put my fuel on the bike, pump my tires, and, that was it. So it was actually a lot faster of a ride than when you do it in the middle of the day because of traffic kind of downtown and stuff. So there's no traffic at 5 a.m. So we got there a lot quicker. So it was okay.
Nice. So when you get to transition, is this a concrete transition, asphalt transition, grass, sand?
Oh boy. So this is kind of a maze. There's like a lot of, it's not just like in Texas, right? You just have rows of bikes, or most places. This is they just try to fit the bikes into like a park that has a lot of twisty turns. So bikes are like in all kinds of different like formations, if you will. But most of the ground is asphalt. And then I think most of it also had carpets running down the middle. So you really, barefoot on like anything dangerous or anything. So, so the transition can be a little confusing if your bike ends up in like one of the turns and twists, but mine was actually fairly simple and straight shot. So it was fine and easy to kind of get in and out.
Nice. So whenever you actually get to transition, you have to put air in your tires here. Did you let out air the day before?
Yeah. So I always, especially in hot races, I always leave out, take out some air pressure so that they don't, blow up the tube and tire overnight. So I definitely always pump my tires up in the morning. So I did that. I added my fluids to the bike. And then I actually tried to take my potatoes down to add them to my T1 bag, which usually, they tell you're not allowed to get into your T1 bag in the morning in every race, and then they always let you. But they really didn't want to let me this time. So I just begged until they did. But I wouldn't recommend, if you do Ironman Cozumel and you don't, obviously I didn't want to leave potatoes overnight in a bag, so I wanted to keep them refrigerated. But if you don't, if there's stuff like you feel like you need to add your shoes in the morning, just add them the night before, because they really don't want to let you go. So
I wonder why. Is that like a security reason, you think?
They do that everywhere. So like even in Hawaii, they say you're not allowed to, but then they will escort you. So you have to wait for like a volunteer. They'll take you. So I think it is for security reasons, so that you don't end up to somebody else's bag and taking things out, or like, I don't know, messing things up. And like,
I would understand if it would be taking something out of the bag, but adding something to it. I mean, anybody can throw away anything.
Yeah, I think they normally. They say that at every race. So I understand why they don't want like all of a sudden 3,000 people going to their bag in the morning, right? And like looking in it, because that just creates chaos. And so I think they want to limit that number of people that do that. But I think they also didn't have the volunteers to probably watch, everybody that goes down there to see what they're doing, like you said, for safety reasons. I guess these days you never know. So, and it was in the dark and it was still pitch black out. So anyway, but they did let me. I looked sad enough with my potatoes in my hand, and I just kept standing there until they let me do it.
Jeez. So after you get done with T1, you head over to the swim start. What's the atmosphere like? Paint the picture of what it's like to be there.
Yeah, so you have to get back on the bus. So you stand in like a long line to get back on buses. And it's like, the coach big buses that fit like 50 people or whatever. So we're all standing in line, and it's still dark out because the sun doesn't rise until, I'm going to say it's 6:30. 6:45. So, but the atmosphere, like versus like 5 weeks ago in Hawaii, I feel like a lot of first timers do this race. So it just seemed very kind of calm and relaxed. They didn't really feel all that pent up nervous energy. So it was actually quite nice. Everybody was chatting in the line, waiting in line to get on the bus, and yeah, it was good. And then, you get off the bus. I mean, it's a 2-mile bus ride, and then you get off the bus, and that's where they had all the porta potties for everybody to use. And one thing that's awesome about this race is they actually have plenty of them, and they're male and female specific. And so, because there's a lot less females racing, there's no line for the women's porta potties. So
Nice.
It's like the best thing ever, because you don't have to stress in line that you're not even going to make it to the bathroom before the gun goes off, which is usually the case at any other race that you need to use the bathroom at. So, if you want to do IRONMAN Cozumel, you're going to have your own bathroom almost.
And there's probably plenty of TP in there.
Yes. Well, maybe in the men's ones. I don't know if in the women's, but because we all use it and you guys don't. But no, it's awesome because it has these, like, the door has these big, like, either female or male signs on it, and there seems to be so many women's ones, and they're always empty, and then the poor guys have to stand in line. But I don't feel bad because it's always the other way around anywhere you go. So for once at this race, you enjoy the ability to go to the bathroom when you want to.
Yeah. So whenever you got to your corral, where did you seed yourself at?
Yeah, so it was a rolling start, and they had the first corral was under 1 hour, and then it was 1 to 1:10. So I went to the front of the 1 hour to 1:10 corral. And yeah, this swim is usually has a little current, so that you only swim with, not against. So I didn't really have any time expectations. I just wanted to swim good, but I was hoping to be somewhere between the 1 and 1:10. So I just went to the front of it to kind of hopefully avoid some of the people that go all the way to the front when they don't really belong there. So that's where I seated myself. And then once it kind of started rolling, you walk down a ramp, and then you had to jump off into the water and just start swimming. And it's a straight line, so it's super easy. You just, I don't know, you're probably 100 yards, maybe a little more off the shore. That's to your left, and you're keeping all the buoys to your right. There actually isn't that many. I want to say they have one maybe every 100 yards or more. And yeah, you just swim.
So with knowing that this is going to be obviously open water and in the ocean, are you doing anything different as far as preparation with lubrication anywhere, and maybe putting your goggles underneath your cap? I know you didn't do in Texas, but that was also a wetsuit legal swim.
Yeah, so obviously non-wetsuit legal swim, water's super warm. I think you mentioned it was 81 degrees, so actually felt nice. It didn't feel warm and it didn't feel cold, so it was good. I don't ever put my goggles under my swim cap. I don't know why. I just, like, it's not as physical of a swim with the rolling start, so I feel like it's easier to avoid, like, punches in the head or kicks or whatever, and especially in this water where you can see absolutely everything. So if somebody's swimming over you here, then they're just doing it on purpose. Where, like, in Texas, you can't even see your own elbow, right? So if somebody swims into you, they're not doing it on purpose, at least not the first time. So here you can see for miles. So no, I didn't do anything different in terms of my goggles. I definitely did make sure I put extra kind of just lube for chafing kind of all around the, all the, like, armpits and neckline and all where the swim skin goes. And just anything that you do in any really other race, you don't have to do anything super special besides maybe kind of focus a little more on the kind of around the armpit area where your swim skin goes because of the salt water, which can cause a little extra chafing if you don't lube it. But beside that, I always wear a brand new pair of goggles, so I don't do anything with those either, but just put them on my head and and go. I feel like a gift to me a kind of a better visibility, no fogging, just kind of less potential issues than when you swim with goggles that are used.
Okay. So a lot of people complain about their swim skins riding up or not going high enough, and it limits their range of motion. What kind of swim skin do you use, and do you have any issues with it?
Nope. I've always used the Blue 70 swim skins or wetsuit. So I use their newest, the sleeveless swim skin, and yeah, I've had zero issues. I've also used the sleeved one, which is awesome as well, but unfortunately I think just the fit for me isn't right. I think my arms are too skinny, so and then my legs are too big, so I can't go down in size to fit my arms, because then my legs don't fit. And then if my legs fit, my arms are too skinny, so I need to, in the off season, apparently work on my biceps and triceps and bulk up a little. But whether it's a sleeved or sleeveless, I've never had issues with any of the Blue 70 swim skins, and I love them. They're super comfortable, zero chafing, saltwater or not. Yeah.
Nice. So you get into the swim after the male and female pros go off. How does the swim go for you?
So we jumped in. I jumped in feet first because I wasn't about to dive into the ocean, not knowing how deep it was or anything like that. So, whatever. Some people are diving in head first and then fixing their goggles because they lost them right away. I just kind of like cannonballed in gracefully and started swimming. And yeah, you just try to swim as straight as possible. It was definitely a bit choppy versus what I've done before, because there's still a bit of wind, not like the days leading up to the race, but it was still definitely quite wavy. So there was a lot of the up and down movement. And with that, there was also a lot of seaweed, which is not something that I've experienced there before. And I didn't really enjoy that, but you just feel like you're getting scratched. Kind of, you grab it with your hand first and it kind of scratches your whole body as you move through it. But it was pretty kind of uneventful. I don't necessarily think that there's a lot of current there either. I didn't really feel like something was, like pushing me and making me go really fast. I was kind of just focused on doing my thing and trying to swim straight. And eventually I found a set of feet that was a guy that was definitely swimming faster than me. So I just stayed there from there on until the end, which was awesome because he was definitely moving faster than I would have on my own. And he was kind of swimming all around the other people and sighting really well. So that saved me from actually having to look up, which was really nice because my neck was still not as stiff as the day before, but definitely not, how you would want it to be. So the fact that I could see everything underwater without having to look up and see where I was going was awesome. So I kind of lucked out, hopped on some feet, and yeah, the swim was kind of over before I knew it. And it was fun. Yeah. Minus jellyfishes. There's definitely jellyfish in the Cozumel waters, but they're tiny, so you can't see them. And they just you just feel like you're getting electrocuted a little bit, but it goes away. I guess unless you're allergic, but I'm thankfully not. So it just feels like a little zap and then it goes away eventually.
Nice. So you swam an hour and 10 at Texas earlier this year. And now then you swam an hour 4 here. So you got about 5 minutes faster. What do you contribute that to?
So actually I didn't really get that much faster, but what is better to compare the Cozumel swim to is the Kona swim, because that's also an ocean swim and there's quite a bit of people that race both. And I swam 1:16 in Kona, which is horrible. I really would have liked to swim 1:10, but whatever, it was what it was. And I swam 1:04 here. So I was about 12 minutes faster versus some other people that are much better swimmers than me. And they were swimming about 5 or 6 minutes faster here than they did in Kona. So, obviously I didn't know that during the race, but after the race, once I looked, that was kind of the pattern. I knew I definitely swam well because they would have put me, 1:04 in Cozumel would have put me at 1:10 in Kona, which is what I wanted to do. So one day I'll figure out how to swim in Hawaii, but I did have a good swim. And overall, in terms of pace, the swim actually in Cozumel was quite a bit short. I thought maybe it was just my Garmin, but I've asked a couple of people afterwards and kind of just looked on Strava and looked like we all swam around 3,800, maybe 3,850 or so. So it was definitely a bit short. And that's why I say, you know, there's probably not as much of a current as, you know, people may seem. So yes, if there was 4,200 and I swam 104, I would definitely say I had a lot of help. But, you know, had that been a legit distance, I think, you know, I would have been around the 110 mark, which is where I would, you know, given my swim fitness and kind of what I can do in the pool and what I've done before, is more so where I should be. But, you know, either way, I was happy with the swim, just in comparison with Hawaii and, you know, other people that are to begin with better swimmers than me. I definitely cut a lot more time off in the 5 weeks, or just execute, you know, did a better job in Cozumel or find better feet, whatever it was. I got out of the water and I felt good and, you know, ready to ride, my favorite part.
Yes. So you spent about 4.5 minutes in T1. How does T1 go for you?
Whew, T1's long. So yeah, you climb up like a set of stairs that they put into the water, and then you grab your bag like you normally would at any race. And then the women's changing tent is quite a bit further than the men's, which on the way in and out. So it's not fair because we have to run further in and then back out and back to our bikes, which is a lot longer. But I got into T1 tent and there was actually nobody there. So, you know, there's just lots of volunteers that all wanted to help me, but I don't speak Spanish and they didn't speak English. And so this is actually funny. So they're super nice, and a lot of them are like younger kids. So this girl's trying to help me, and you know, I just kind of dump my bag, and it has my shoes and my socks and helmet. Oh no, helmet I had on my bike. So just my jersey, because I pre-stuff it with the potatoes, and my level N pouches of powder for drinking. And so then I just, you know, I roll the sleeves, and then I put the jersey on, and then the next thing I was going to put on is my socks. And I roll my socks so they're easy to put on. And the first thing this girl did is unrolled my socks to try to help me. And I was just like, no, don't do that. And she's looking at me and she like doesn't understand what I'm saying. And so I was just, you know, trying to tell her to stop. And so anyway, she undid my socks, and then eventually I was like, no. And she's like, okay, no help. I said, okay, fine, no help. So I just did everything myself and, you know, put my socks on, whatever, threw everything back in the bag. So you actually have to pack your own bag and then grab the bag and run with the bag to your bike. And once you take your bike, you leave the T1 bag in the place of your bike. So that's a little different, I guess, than other races I've done, where you just leave your bag in the tent and the volunteers take care of it. So yeah, just ran to the bike with my shoes in hand, because it was a long run. So I'd rather run barefoot or in socks than with the cleats kind of slipping everywhere. So when I got to my bike, I put my shoes on, threw my helmet on, dropped my bag, and ran out.
Nice. So you get to the bike, the first few miles of the bike. How does that go? What's the excitement and atmosphere like for you?
Yeah, so you know, you ride out of the park and there's usually a bunch of spectators there just lining up, seeing people come out. Cause this is actually like a dolphin place. So you can do like swim with dolphins and stuff, when there is no race. So people hang out there, and yeah, I just got on my bike and tried to kind of assess to see how my legs felt. And, it wasn't crowded. Kind of the road was pretty much wide open. So that was really nice. So I didn't have to deal with any, you know, packs or like aggressive, usually male riding, being upset with female passing them. So, you know, I felt good, and kind of just, you know, start focusing on what I needed to do.
Wow. So as far as the road quality here, what's the quality of the road like?
It's actually really nice. Some of it, I think, so you can you go around the island 3 times.
Right.
And each loop, you can kind of split up into 3 parts. It's kind of the first 11 miles is covered. So it has tree coverage on both sides. And the road is, I want to say it's a little bit of a chip seal, but not like the typical Texas one that's really bumpy. So So the road is actually, it's nice. And then after the first 11 miles, the road opens up and you start riding next to the ocean. And that's where you get a lot of the crosswinds. And that road is super smooth. So, obviously it doesn't get cold in Cozumel. So there's like no cracks, no potholes, nothing. It's almost perfect surface really, all around. So then you get the 11 miles that are exposed to the wind. So you usually get a lot of headwind and the crosswind gusts. And that's why you're not allowed to ride a disc wheel in Cozumel, just like in Hawaii. And then the last, I guess another 11 to 12, 13 miles, you start heading back into town, and it's a little more protected. Like you're not next to the ocean again, but you either have, depending on the wind direction, you don't have as much of a headwind or tailwind, so you're kind of in between, but also windy, yeah.
So knowing that this is your third time here at Cozumel, how were the conditions on the bike ride this time compared to the last two times?
It was definitely windy, but I didn't think it was as windy as probably most other people thought it was. Obviously with each loop, as the later you're out there on the course, the stronger the wind gets. So with each loop, I knew the wind was going to be getting stronger, especially in the exposed sections. So you kind of want to try to pace yourself, if you will, and don't go, crazy on the first loop, because you're definitely going to be slowing down as you go. So you want to kind of save your power or effort or whatever everybody rides by for later in the race, which you want to do anyway, but more so in this race, knowing you're going to be most likely getting really pounded with wind and headwind. So I didn't think it was bad. It was windy, which was good, but I'm pretty aerodynamic on my bike, and so I wanted it to be windy because that's to my advantage. So the headwind was strong, but I didn't think the crosswinds were bad, where I'd had to fight to stay on my bike like I did the couple of days before the race. So, for me, it was perfect. Probably for a lot of people that were, further behind me, the longer they stayed on the bike, or maybe not as confident, they probably didn't like it very much. Yeah, but that's Cozumel. So you get a flat bike course, but you have to deal with wind. Right.
So did you have a strategy of how you wanted to attack this bike ride from a cadence, power, heart rate, RPE, maybe a threshold perspective? What does this strategy look like for you for the bike ride?
Yeah, for sure. So like I said, it's 3 loops, and each loop kind of can be broken down into 3 parts. So that's exactly what my goal was, to kind of focus on each part and each loop at a time. So I'd actually hit lap essentially every section. So, and I tried to build my power. So if I knew I was riding, I ride with power mostly. I don't really pay attention to cadence or heart rate. Just really focus on how I feel and kind of what that power looks like. And especially it being a second Ironman in 5 weeks, you always kind of want to be mindful of, okay, maybe this is feeling too hard for this power, so let's not go crazy. You did just do an Ironman 5 weeks ago. So I had some kind of wattage goals in mind that I tried to stick to each of the sections. So the first, kind of like I said, once you get out of the water and you start riding, it's probably 11 or so miles or 12 that you're kind of protected. So usually that part is a tailwind. So, and that actually was the case. And I do look at my speed as well. And I was going probably averaging like 26 miles an hour. So I knew, there's really no reason to hammer because the wind's really helping you. So I was trying to save my power in those sections and then use them once the kind of road opens up. So then I'd hit lap and just focus on the next 12 miles. And, you watch like, okay, now I'm only going 21. So you're like, okay, I'm working, right? So even if you don't necessarily feel the wind, that's where people are now getting pushed back. So you want to use your power. So I would increase my effort for that section. And then once we turned away and started going back, it was kind of in between. So I think on the first loop, I was at like 23. So you were still fighting a little bit of headwind and it didn't necessarily have all the tail. So I was just trying to, focus on my fueling and then gauge my effort each section of each loop. And then, I could tell by the second loop, I actually was pushing the same power on the kind of the first section and still was going pretty fast. And then once we got back to the headwind crosswind, I think I was down to 20 miles an hour with a good 10 extra watts. So I was working harder, but I was going slower. So you could tell the wind was definitely picking up. But yeah, I was doing really well until probably 75 miles in, which kind of started the third loop. When my fueling, we've talked about this a little earlier. I guess my body's now tired of what I've been doing forever. So it kind of just gives me the stop sign and is like, nope, we don't want this anymore. And so I kind of had to back off and just stick with water for a while. And so my power dropped off. But, I just focused on, so instead of beating myself up and like being mad, which is normally what I would do, I'd get frustrated that, I've done this a million times in training and now I can't do it on race day. I just kind of switched the power screen off and just focused on, really staying aerodynamic and at least taking advantage of what kind of the free speed. Even if my power was lower than what I wanted it to be, I was still moving a lot better than everybody else. And so, I just focused on, staying low to the ground and kind of cutting through the wind and, kind of waiting out until I can eat again. Or forcing myself to eat whatever I thought I could, because I knew I still had to run 26 miles, obviously.
Right. So with the aid stations here, did you have enough time to get what you needed and discard what you didn't need? And the water quality in Mexico for a lot of Americans is different. And how did you know that you could trust the water here? I know this is your third time here, but has this ever been an issue with you?
Oh, yeah, actually, that's funny. So I learned the hard way. The first time I did this in 2014 and stayed at an all-inclusive place, I was always eating everything, and you always want a little bit of like fruit or salad or whatever. And yeah, the day before my first time racing in Cozumel, which is only going to be my second Ironman ever, I came down with the, what do you call it? Mexican something, where you have to go to the bathroom way too much.
Mexican poops?
Yeah, no. There really is a name for it. I don't know what it is.
Oh, I got nothing.
There is a term for this. I don't know what it is, but there is one. I'll look it up. You can tell them later. But so ever since then, I've obviously been very careful. So I wouldn't, until the race, I will not eat anything that's not boiled. So I would stay away from like lettuce and vegetables that are not cooked. Or fruit, like anything that was cooked is fine. But in terms of drinking water, they will not, everything is fine. And then on race day, they actually, instead of handing out bottled water like they do in the States, they actually fill actual water bottles with water. And that's what they hand out. So you knew you were getting good water. And actually really cold because they also put ice in it. So that was very nice.
Oh, wow. So you get water bottles that are iced bottles of water on the bike course.
Correct. Yep. So they're like, a cheaper version of, it's not like an Ironman Cozumel bottle that you buy at the Ironman store, but it's just like a same style plastic, like an actual legit water bottle with, filled with cold water and ice cubes in it. So I would obviously eventually throw my bottles away and then just rely on the water. They have Gatorade as well, but I don't drink that, but that was still in the sport, regular Gatorade bottles that you'd see anywhere else. So I would just grab bottles and then use one to, refill my needs. And then also always grab one to cool myself off because it's definitely hot and humid. So you want to stay out in front of that and stay as cool as possible. Even if you don't feel, hot, you want to start cooling off right away. So I wouldn't skip. I may have skipped one aid station right at the very beginning because it came up very quickly, probably within 20 minutes. But after that, I always made sure to slow down for everyone and just grab a extra bottle of water to kind of hose myself off and then still throw it away before obviously the, no garbage zone or whatever it's called, no trash zone.
Right. Now, I know you wore your fluorescent green kit that I'm a huge fan of. I love that. So did you want to wear this because of the heat, aerodynamics, or you just like this? Is it taste?
Yeah, no. So it's the Castelli Stealth top, which is one of the most aerodynamic tops that they make. I also find it to be super comfortable and awesome, especially in hot weather conditions, because if you keep it wet, it keeps you cooler anyway. So I like the not just cycle in it because it has the longer sleeves kind of down to the elbow that, are good for aerodynamics. But I also like to keep it wet on the run because it keeps me cooler. So I know some people may race in it on the bike and then they take it off and just race in like a top on the run. I actually like it doesn't feel restricting to me at all because the material is super light. So I run with it as well. Yeah. So, that's the Castelli top that I think I've now raced in for, I don't even know, ever since it came out. Definitely good, 3 years at least, probably.
Wow. So with the bike ride, did you see a lot of flats, mechanicals, or wrecks?
I didn't see any of that. I don't think. I definitely have heard that there's been some accidents, but I haven't myself seen any. Actually, the course felt quite empty in a way, which is really nice. Kind of nice welcome change to some of the other, Kona or Texas, both of them that are just, kind of busy with a lot of athletes. So I don't know if it was the race itself is a little bit smaller than most of the races in North America. Although I think this year it was a little bigger because a lot of people that didn't do Ironman Florida or didn't want to switch the location so late ended up coming to Cozumel. But, it felt, at least for me and where I was in the field, I kind of felt like I could just do my own thing. There really wasn't anybody else kind of around me that I had to deal with. So it was awesome.
Now, I know Cozumel is a race that is strictly against drafting. And they make that evident on the athlete guide, pictures everywhere around transition. Did you see any drafting on the bike course?
So they actually also make it very evident in bathrooms, which is quite interesting. I don't know if in the men's, but in the women's bathroom at registration, the mirrors, like when you wash your hands and you look in a mirror, the mirrors have huge no drafting signs that you see in the athlete guide and everywhere else. They're also in the bathrooms, which is kind of cool. I didn't really see very much. So like I said, this is the third time. So when I did it before the first year, it was really bad. And that was still a mass start. Then the year after that, I think that's when they started doing the snow draft thing, and it was night and day. And so again, it's a flat course. And so, you'd think that it'd be prone to drafting, but I think because of the rolling start and, kind of the smaller number of competitors. So I don't know what the total was. I'm going to say 1,800 maybe, because I registered late and my number was 1,820. So I'm going to say there was under 2,000, which is way less than what you normally see at Texas, for example. So I think that in combination with, I don't know, I guess the rolling swim start and maybe a lot of beginners and kind of the field ability being more spread out, lend itself to a fairly clean race. So I myself, I saw a little bit, but, if it was two people together or three, but no, I didn't see any pelotons or anything that would raise, make me upset or anything. There's definitely no packs that I saw.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Usually I know you find this nutrition issue about mile 75 from a mentality perspective, miles 80, 90, and 100, where you still have a little bit left of the bike ride, but you're not quite done, but you're over halfway. These are usually the dark miles for a lot of people. How do you get through these darker miles?
So I think because I've done this, so this was my 13th Ironman, and I've done plenty of long bike rides, and like you say, it's funny. You kind of get to the 80 miles or whatever, 75, 80, whether your nutrition's working or not. And you're like, oh, I need to be off my bike. But I think being comfortable on your bike to begin with is key. So yes, you may want to be off the bike because you start to struggle or whatever. But at least being comfortable, not being not comfortable is not the reason that you want to get off. It's like, oh, I need to get off the seat or whatever. So, but yeah, I just I knew I was struggling nutrition wise, but I also knew going into the race that I didn't have enough time to fix what I needed to fix, because nutrition's very personal and it's not just like, well, let's just switch to this and we'll find out. And because it's not an issue until like the 3.5 hour mark, I only did one ride that was over that. So I just knew I had to deal with that. So I just tried to focus on, what I can control. So like I said, even though my power was not where I wanted it to be, instead of beating myself up and kind of being upset about it and trying to force it and get to that number, I just focused on what I can control. So just, trying to relax and stay as aero as possible, and, just try to stay positive in my head. I don't honestly think I was thinking about anything. I don't sing any songs or anything like that. I just kind of focus on the road ahead and be like, okay, well, I'm still passing people. So, I'm not doing too bad. Just kind of one pedal stroke at a time, ignore the numbers and just focus on kind of the feel and letting it come back to me, because I know what I'm capable of. So, I've done tons of long rides, and I know that, the dark moments will always pass. So just have to kind of wait it out. And while that's happening, just try not to ruin the whole race. Just stay positive.
So mentally, how hard was this bike ride for you?
Honestly, because I knew that this nutrition thing, it was probably going to happen, I kind of, mentally, I didn't let that beat me up. And then when that started to happen, I actually caught up to a couple of really great swimmers, and triathletes, and actually bike riders that, that had beaten me in Kona just 5 weeks before. And I've never even seen them on the bike there. So so that kind of gave me a boost. Knowing that, okay, yes, you're struggling, but you're still moving. You must have swam well, because you've caught up to girls that started ahead of me, because I knew they would have gone into the under 1 hour Corral, and now I'm, catching them, kind of around the, let's say, whatever it was, 80, 90 miles on the bike. 5 weeks ago, I had a strong ride and I never even saw them. So, that kind of was like, okay, well, just do your thing, whatever. The power's not where it, it can be, but that doesn't mean the race is done. Just do your thing, and yeah. Nice. Then, focus on the whatever, try to get whatever food in I could, even though it wasn't perfect.
So with a bike ride, is there anything you'd tell someone to be aware of that hasn't done this bike ride before?
I think the biggest thing is, be ready for kind of the wind, and know that that's part of the race or part of the course. It's always going to happen. So don't let that, know that the wind's going to get stronger with each loop. So be diligent with kind of your fueling and pacing and cooling, really, because it is a hot and humid race. It may not necessarily feel super hot on the bike because of the wind. But yeah, just stick to what you know and pace yourself, because the third loop, and the longer you're out there, the third loop can be hard because you just feel like you're probably going backwards. So know that that's what's going to happen, and just save your energy for when it matters the most.
Wow. So after your nutrition debacle, are you getting anything done as far as last minute nutrition before you get ready to get off the bike?
Yeah, so I brought an extra sleeve of Cliff Blocks, so I at least forced myself to eat those. So although I fell behind by probably a good couple hours on kind of the carbs from the drink, and the potatoes kind of turned into mashed potatoes. So they didn't sound like, for some reason, I don't know why. Maybe the type of potatoes that I ended up getting was different than what I normally would do. I knew I was a little bit behind, but, whatever. I was still hoping that I could have a good run. So I forced myself to eat the blocks and kind of just wash them down with water. And, just try to stay hydrated, at least, with water, and kind of staying cool so that when I get off the bike, I'm not overheated. That was the biggest thing.
Okay. So whenever you get to T2, you're in T2 for less than 2.5 minutes. Pretty quick here. How does T2 go for you?
Mm-hmm. So actually one more thing about the bike course is actually almost 113 miles. So if you're expecting it, so if you're expecting it to get off the bike at 112, it's not going to happen. I don't know if I started my Garmin at the right time, but it's definitely like every year it's between like 112.7 to probably 112 point. So it's almost a mile long. So whatever we lost on the swim, we gained on the bike. So it ends up being a legit distance. But yeah, the T2 is fairly quick. So you hop off the bike. I do the flying dismount. So I leave my shoes on the bike, hand the bike to a volunteer, grab a bag, and then run into the changing tent, which again was completely empty. So I had about 10 kids standing around me trying to help me. Again, none of them spoke English, so it was a little difficult. But then I ended up meeting this girl on the ferry over on Thursday whose friend was racing, and she was somehow volunteering in T2. So she just like runs up to me and she's like, "Oh my God, you're doing so good. You're first in your age group by, 2.5 minutes. And there's one girl in front of you." And so she kind of gave me the lowdown on where I was, which was nice. But honestly, like I said, I was like, no, I just want to have a good run. Like, this is really what this race was all about. I wanted to have a good run. So she helped me, and she actually so I told her what I wanted. So they helped me to get I wear the head, a cooling headband and kind of a scarf.
The same one from Texas?
Yeah, yep, same thing. So they helped me to get that wet, and I was trying something different. So, I got that, I ran out of the tent, and I was trying something different in terms of fueling as well here on the run because, I knew that what I was doing up until now, which was just Cliff Blocks, water, and Coke, usually works for 2 hours before it's not working anymore. So I wanted to try something different. So I tried the Heather Jackson banana method.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I've tried it in training a couple times. I mean, I did a 10-mile run and like an 8-mile run. And so I just would eat a banana. And it seemed to work really well. So I was like, well, I have nothing to lose. So I put a whole banana in my T2 bag and super green. So, I had to leave that overnight because you definitely don't have access to those bags because they're in a different spot. But it was perfect. It didn't get mushy or anything. So I ran out of T210 holding a banana. And then I still had my Cliff Blocks, and I was going to try to do both. So I ate the banana within 30 minutes. I think Heather held on to hers for 26 miles. So no, she said she had 2 in Lake Placid, but anyway, I inhaled mine in 30 minutes and I felt awesome. I was like, oh, this is so good. I'm going to have the best run. I feel fueled, whatever. I've forgotten how far behind I fell on the bike.
But you also changed socks here.
Oh, I changed socks. Yeah. So I took off the bike socks because they were wet. And I'd rather start with, dry socks. So nobody unfolded my socks in T2, so it was perfect. So they were on quick, unlike in T1. And yeah, I put my, obviously, race belt on, which actually it's the naked race belt, and it has lots of pockets all around. So it's like a fuel belt, but it doesn't bounce at all because it's just a stretchy fabric. So I had a handheld bottle in there and then a bunch of Cliff product and salt. So I had that around my waist and then banana in hand, and there I went off. And I was feeling awesome. I run by heart rate, at least for the first half of the run. So, which is really at the beginning to kind of slow me down to make sure I don't go out too hard. Which I've done before because it's so easy to just run out when everybody's cheering you on. It's just easy, to get carried away.
So speaking of cheering, you're down here racing alone. You don't have your coach. You don't have anybody down there to support you with signs or saying, go Jana.
Yeah.
How is this racing alone? Is this the first time you've done this?
I've done it once before, I think, back in It was the same race because I decided last minute again. But actually, I felt nothing but alone. It was kind of crazy. So I traveled down there alone, but on Friday before the race, one of the athletes I actually coach here in Texas, and I coach her husband as well for running. They both decided to come down and like help me. So it was awesome. So I wasn't completely alone. They actually stayed in the same hotel, and then they were going to be at the run turnaround, so which was essentially like 4.5 miles in. So they were on that end, and then this girl I met on the ferry who was in T2 like gave me a whole lowdown of exactly what I essentially needed to know, right? So, and I had just met, and she said, "I'll let you know every loop. I'll just wait for you at the turnaround over here." And I was like, "Oh my God, that's so nice. I met you literally for 20 minutes on the ferry as I was trying to not get sick."
So what information were you wanting to know?
I really didn't care. I didn't, but she told me, she essentially said, "You're leading your age group by 2.5 minutes and I'll keep you posted." Because they were asking me about the race, and then they kind of figured, they're like, "Oh, you're going to win it." And I was like, "I don't care if I win. I just want to go have a good race." And so she was kind of like you in Texas. As I was getting off the bike, she like essentially told me, just the standing of the race. So she's like, "There's only one girl in front of you." And I was like, "Okay, well, cool." So, and then the guy that had worked on me the night before was standing just outside of him and his girlfriend are also triathletes. So they came to spectate also. So they were outside of the T2 tent as well. So I literally wasn't alone at all. And then for some reason at like mile 1 of the run, there's somebody cheering for me like crazy and taking pictures. And it was a couple, and I was like, I have no idea who these people are, but clearly they knew me. And so I felt nothing but alone. It was crazy. I did find out after the race, after I saw the pictures on Instagram, it was actually Lisa. I would butcher her last name, but I raced against her in Lake Placid last year. She was also on the podium. She's Canadian, and I guess she was there on vacation or something, but she took like photos of me on the bike. So also as you're riding through town, there's kind of like a little tunnel of people and they all cheer. So I'd always hear my name, but I had no idea who it was coming from. So I learned after the race that was them. So yeah, I may have traveled alone, but I felt like I went down there with 50 people. It was awesome.
Wow. So the middle section of the run, miles say 8 through 15, how are these miles going for you? Do you use special needs? Are you hurting, cramping?
Yeah, so like I said, I started off running, I ate my banana, I was feeling awesome. The first 8 miles, I felt really, really good. And then, let's see, and then I needed like more food, right? So after I had eaten the banana, I was like, oh, I need another one. And they said they would have them in 8 stations. Because at this point, for some reason, I decided that the Cliff Blocks that I was carrying with me, I didn't want to eat them. I was just going to do bananas. But the bananas I start grabbing because they were sitting in the sun. Some of them were
mushy
and some were good. And so that event, after like 90 minutes of bananas, then I was done with bananas also. So I had a great 90-minute run. I was feeling really good. My heart rate was in check. At this point, I knew I had passed the girl that was leading because it's a complete out and back. So as you're running down, you see the people coming back and like the whole time, right? So it's no loops. It's just out and back. So I knew I was in the front, but that wasn't even on my mind. The only 2 things that I was thinking about the whole run was I kept repeating, this is going to sound really funny, but I kept repeating glutes because and you had to engage my bum to run well and like, keeps my form kind of on point. And then squirrels and squirrels, because since I moved to Texas, I've been stealing, Gemma Hollis's push glide kick puppy, and we've been running and, when I do my easy runs with her, and sometimes she doesn't want to run, but then if she sees a squirrel, she like sprints and goes really fast. And so I was like, okay, when Trifle doesn't want to run, she chases squirrels. So when you start struggling, you start thinking squirrels, like you're chasing squirrels. So I was keeping it really simple in my head. And yeah, I felt good probably until mile 12. And then, I definitely started to feel the lack of nutrition. And I started slowing down, but nothing crazy. I was still running good. My legs, there's no cramping, or like my legs didn't feel kind of the other Ironman early on. It's just, I just started running out of fuel. I was doing at this point whatever bananas that were decent, and they were cut in half. So once I'd grab one, it was like, okay, like one bite. And some of them were just gross, so I couldn't do that. And I did put a couple of them in my special needs that you mentioned, and I don't usually use it, but I was going to use it this time. But one thing that happens with Cozumel is all the volunteers are little kids, and it's great for probably the first hour, but then they get tired and they get distracted. And so they're not always standing there with drinks and things. And so as I was kind of running to the turnaround, you give them your number, right? And then as you're running back, they give you the bag, but they didn't get my number. And so I wasn't willing to, in retrospect, maybe I should have, but I wasn't willing to stand there and wait for them to find my bag so that I could get my 2 green bananas that I put in there. So I just chose to keep going. And yeah, so by probably mile 16 or 18 or so, I definitely just was running out of fuel. Kind of you go through stages of, okay, now I'm tired. Not that my legs hurt, but you want to go, but you don't have any energy. So you start slowing down, and then you start getting like nauseous a little bit because you don't have any food. And then you kind of just want to fall asleep because you don't have any energy. So I just tried to keep drinking and getting some, they have Pepsi on the course instead of Coke, same thing.
Mentally, this is hard for a lot of people. What keeps you moving forward through this time?
Well, my sole goal was to come and kind of be happy with the way I fought with the race, regardless of what the splits were. So I stopped looking at my watch and I kind of just focused on one step at a time. So, I don't know. Like I said, I tried not to get into the dark places. And so I legit kept repeating glutes and squirrels and glutes and squirrels. And every time I saw somebody I knew, like I tried to cheer for them or just take the mind off of myself and focus on others. So I had a couple of people that came with me, right? They were so this would have been on the third loop, this would have been mile 22-ish, 21 and something. So, I tried to like smile at them, even the last thing you want to do is smile. And, they're trying to tell me at this point, they finally on the second loop. So they were in touch with Jorge, who was like, I wanted to know where I was. Right. So, on the first loop, they said you're 2.5 minutes up. So I kept trying to look for the girl that was behind me. Then by the time I got to mile 12, I think I had 7 minutes, which the complete stranger girl told me. She was waiting for me there, like she said she would. And then on the out and back again, then my friends were like, you're ahead, but they wouldn't tell me by how much. And so I'm like, how much? And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, that's bullshit. You just don't want to tell me. So I know, like, sometimes Jorge will do that because let's say the lead is big, whatever. He just wanted me to keep racing. So I think at that point it was like 9 minutes. And so my lead was building, right? But I'm actually
what they should say is 30 seconds.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But I wasn't, like, I'm not dumb. And I kind of watch who was coming towards me the other way. And so, or at least what they look like. So then when I got to the third turnaround, I was really struggling at this point. I was like, okay, now I really just want to like fall asleep and sit down and like just go to my hotel room since I'm right here. And then they said, oh, you're leading the whole race. Like you're leading the overall amateur race by, I don't know, I think it was 3 minutes at the time. And I still had 4 miles to go, but the girl's coming in quick. And I knew who she was because I could, at every turnaround, I would see somebody getting closer and running really strong. And he said, and you have 14 minutes on the second girl in your age group. And I was like, okay. I just need to keep moving, like no walking. So I wasn't running very fast at this point. I was in the 9s now, which ideally I would like to not do. But like I said, I just kept saying glutes and squirrels and just keep moving. And, every aid station, just grab whatever you can. It was getting warm for sure. So just keep trying to stay cool and keep moving because I knew that, as long as I keep moving, then I will have I'll win. But again, I knew that I went into the race knowing that my fueling needs work, and I didn't have enough time to fix it. So I knew I was most likely going to have to deal with it. I just, got myself to the finish line. And, although I know I could have done a lot better, I emptied the tank with what I had, and I was, happy, and I knew I could happily off season and, be excited for what's to come, because I know that if I can actually, get back to kind of get my fueling back to working, that, my legs felt so good. So if I actually just stayed fueled and they could stay feeling that good the whole time, then I knew I could have ran what I know what I'm capable of. So although it wasn't perfect, I was happy with the way I fought and stayed in the moment, even if it wasn't the pace that I knew I could be doing.
Okay. So the last 800 yards before the finish line, I know you have to take a left turn here and go to the finish chute. How was this?
It was the longest 800 yards of my life, because I was definitely struggling at this point quite a bit. So I couldn't come fast enough. Usually you can kind of pick it up and just all the pain or whatever goes away, but I wasn't necessarily in pain. I just didn't have there was just no energy to go. So there's definitely the crowds thicken, and there's a lot of people everywhere. So you kind of just let them take you home. And the finish line was, empty. So that was really nice. And my friends actually took a cab from when they saw me at mile 21 to the finish line. So I was able to, high five them, and they got a little video or whatever. And then, I just was really happy that, I crossed the line, and I actually had a really good race in terms of just dealing with all the curveballs that came my way, and so soon after another Ironman.
Wow. So after you finished, you look at your time. Were you happy with this?
After I finished, I went into the med tent first.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I didn't even know what my time was. I did stop my watch, but I literally just wanted to sleep. So I ended up in the med tent and earned my first IV, which was, whatever. I guess I needed it, and I felt awesome for it. So I am guessing, I guess now I know why IVs are illegal, because the recovery process from that race has definitely been a hell of a lot quicker than it would ever be, which I can only attribute to probably that, because I've never had one before. So I spent quite a bit of time just hanging out in the med tent with my Mexican doctors that didn't speak English. And then, when I got out of the tent, they finally took my chip and gave me my medal. And I honestly still didn't know what time did. I knew I was second, because I knew when the girl passed me, that won the whole thing. Probably mile 23, but she was moving so much faster than me. And at that point, I tried staying with her, but I knew that if I tried, I may actually end up not making it to the end. So I just chose to, finish on my own power. So after I finished, after I made it out of the med tent, I just grabbed some pizza and got my bags. And then my friends obviously met me again. I went to get my bike, and we took a cab back to the hotel. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
So looking back on it, how well prepared for this race do you feel like you were?
Oh, I was super ready for sure. I was, I still had all the fitness that I had for Kona. I definitely felt like I recovered really well. So I never really felt like the Kona fatigue came into play. It was just the fueling that I need to fix that affected kind of the back end of, the bike and the run. And mentally I just knew I had to race. So I was super excited to just get out there and race for the fun of it. Yeah.
Nice. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how logistically complicated is this race?
It's definitely more complicated than your, regular kind of same transition race, but depending on what hotel you stay, it's not complicated. It's just, it sounds more complicated than it is. So I guess, I don't know, maybe 5. It's not overly complicated at all. The island is small, so there's, you might have to pay for a cab, but it's not expensive for U.S. standards.
Nice. So how could Ironman have made your race experience better?
Better. Honestly, I find this race to be one of the better ones because drafting is usually the issue with all the other races, including Hawaii. And so for somebody that's a strong cyclist like me, it's kind of sucks, but I didn't find that issue to be a problem in Cozumel. So I think they did a good job. I don't know if I necessarily saw a lot of officials, but they go on mopeds in Cozumel because the road is essentially, it's not close to traffic, but there's no cars. So that's another good thing about the whole race. You don't have to worry about cars. I don't really think there's much else that can be done. Maybe like make sure the kids don't get tired and keep giving out fuel the whole race. And this is especially true for people that are out on the course a hell of a lot longer than me. I think they end up kind of getting their own stuff eventually. So maybe have like an adult per aid station that can kind of watch over the kids and just keep them in line. But other than that, when the kids are on, they're awesome. The aid stations were super well stocked with everything cold, whether it was loop 1 or 3 for me at least, which cannot always be said even about races in the States. So, there's plenty of ice, plenty of cold water the whole time. So I really, that's really awesome.
Nice. So we covered quite a bit about your race. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I think I've talked about it all. I just, for people that, may think like, 2 Ironmans in 5 weeks is too much. I think it comes down to, it's very personal. And it's important that you always consult with your coach, but also listen to your body. Nobody else can tell you whether it's the right or wrong move. And you kind of have to know and be ready for anything because anything can happen. And honestly, that's whether it's your first Ironman or second in 5 weeks. Just be ready for it all and know that at the end of the day, it's always your decision and one that you have to deal with.
Nice. So what advice would you give first-timers that are doing this race next year?
Yeah, for Cozumel, and any Ironman, just practice your fueling. I think we've covered a lot of that and my issues in this podcast for this race. And it's, I always like to say it's almost more important than the swim, bike, and run because if it's such a long day that if you don't fuel your body, you're not going to be able to take advantage of the fitness that you've shown yourself in training. So, practice your nutrition and know just exactly what you're going to do on race day, but also know that you may have to adapt and just kind of have a backup plan in case things go wrong. But practice your fueling and training every chance you get all year long, entire preparation for any long distance race.
I agree. So to kind of wrap up here with a few more easy questions here, what's next for you?
So I haven't really put together my plans for 2019 yet, but most likely it's going to be Ironman Texas in April, since that's now in my backyard, and potentially Galveston a few weeks before that, 70.3. As I'm thinking about racing Nice Worlds in September, but I haven't decided. So if I do decide that I want to go, then I would have to probably race Galveston. Then I'll probably race Buffalo Springs 70.3, which I'm kind of excited about because that was my first qualifying race for Kona back in 2012 when they still had Kona slots. So it'll be nice to go back now that I'm a lot closer to it than I was before. And then obviously Kona, and potentially I'll definitely be going back to Cozumel, just not sure if it will be racing or just supporting. There's going to be a big group from Texas, and actually a couple of my athletes that also live in Mass doing it. So it'll definitely be a Cozumel reunion of some sort.
Nice. So being that you went to the award ceremony here, got your slot, what was this experience like compared to Texas?
So yeah, they do actually a really nice job in Cozumel. They have actual stage set up with like I don't know what you call it, like things you actually have to get up on, 1, 2, 3.
Podium?
Podium, like podium steps. Yeah, I am originally from the Czech Republic. Give me a break. Sometimes I forget English. So yeah, it was actually pretty cool. They put on, like they bring in, again, it's like kids that do local, like the traditional Mexican dances in between. And, yeah, so it's a little more, I guess it's got a little more bells and whistles, and the trophies are huge and heavy. It's like you need another carry-on to bring them back. But, you know, it was fun. It's always the fun experience, and I guess a little more celebratory, if you will, than what Texas is. Yeah. The Kona slot thing was right after awards, and yeah, just as with Texas, that took forever. Yeah, but it is what it is. And
you had to pay your $1,000 to go back to Kona.
Yeah, a little more than 1,000 this time.
Really?
Was
They upped the price?
The price goes up every year. So this will be my 7th time to Kona, and I think the price goes up anywhere between $50 to $100 every year. So I think the final cost this time was $1,100, I think, or yeah, I think it was $1,100.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I'm never happy about it, and I always say this is it, and I'll never pay that again. And then there you go, here I am again. So I don't know, it's stupid. I feel like until all of us say no, that's too much money. You know, they're just gonna keep raising the price because we keep paying it, and if I don't pay it, somebody else is gonna pay it, and gladly, right? So I don't know. They kind of have us trapped, and I don't know. Yeah, it's not cool. I actually came home and I told my coach, I said, all right, I got to win next year because this is it. I'm done spending $1,100 on a race.
Because all you want is that big bowl.
Yeah, all that. He said, you can just go to Walmart and buy a big bowl, you know. But it's not the same. So, so there you go.
Wow.
$1,100 later. That's why I'm holding off on signing up for Texas, because I don't want it to go on the same credit card statement. So if there's somebody out there that just wants to pay for my entries, then let me know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Jana, it's been great, and I only have a few more questions here, and that's, how can people follow you? So
I'm most active on Instagram, where my handle is Check15. I think you're probably going to put it in notes, right? So I don't have to spell it out. And or Facebook, which is actually the same thing, either my name or Check15. And those are probably the most frequently traveled social media spots for me.
Okay. And you also are a coach with E3 Training Solutions?
Yes, that's correct.
Awesome. And that's e3trainingsolutions.com?
Yes, e3ts.com.
Okay, cool. Well, Jana, being that I already know what your definition of a perfect race is, the next concluding question is always one of my favorite questions, and that's, if you could put in order of importance for you, which is most important for you on race day in order? Nutrition, endurance, or mental grit?
Nutrition, since that's derailed my race many, many times. So I'll go with nutrition. Oh, that's tough. They all should be first because you need them all. But I say you can't show off your endurance without nutrition. So nutrition, mental, that's hard. And then endurance and mental grit have to happen at the same time, because if you don't have the mental grit to keep up with your endurance, you're not going to go anywhere either. But it starts with fuel always.
Wow. Well, this has been fun. I've enjoyed it, and I look forward to following you at Ironman Texas, and I'll be down at Galveston more than likely, so we'll get to race again.
All right, awesome. Looking forward to seeing you again, and thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Have a good day, okay?
Yeah, you too.
Thanks for tuning in today. I hope you were able to learn something from today's episode. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to leave a review on iTunes or share it with a friend.
Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you'd like to see pictures from this athlete's race, learn more about who I am, what I'm doing, or be on the show yourself to share your story, check out my website at CoachTerryWilson.com. Until next time, continue the pursuit.